Hi everyone, I'm Derek Lieu and I make indie game trailers, and today I'm taking a look at the Half-Life Alyx second gameplay clip and explaining what makes it so successful as just a gameplay clip that answers a lot of questions that people had after the announced trailer came out. If you're a game developer or a publisher, whatever, and you're looking to release some gameplay clips of your game, I think there's a lot you can learn from these in terms of the presentation and how it can work in tandem with something like a trailer or your store page, and just answer some of those questions for the people who maybe are a little bit interested in your game, but just need a little bit more to be fully invested.
Well, we've got to get you out of here and up to the roof.
I'm working on it.
Okay, so for this first part of the clip, they're featuring puzzles, which nothing before, except for just some small bits in the announced trailer, featured puzzles. So they just want to show some gameplay variety. So another thing you want to think about with these gameplay clips is that you can actually think of them as this big overarching strategy to show the game in a certain way. You could think of them as like one clip in a certain way. So the first clip had a lot of shooting and exciting stuff like that, whereas this one has a little bit less. So you can think about like, okay, they started out pretty exciting, and then they decided, oh wait, let's come back down a little bit, and then you'll see in the third clip later on that they finish in a very exciting way. So there is actually an arc to the pace of the clips when you put them together. So here, after we've had the big exciting opening, a little bit tense, not 100%, Michael Bay action, but they're kind of coming down, and they're sort of showing, in a way, the gameplay loop, because there's going to be combat encounters, there's going to be puzzle solving moments. So if they just showed, combat all the time, then people would take away from it, oh man, this game, it's all just shooting. I like the puzzly parts of Half-Life 2. So this is what they're doing. They're showing some puzzly bits. And so there's this sort of digital globe that comes out. And one thing that they do with this particular clip, which is really successful, is they really move the head around while they're capturing this, because the person who's capturing this knows that this is going to be appearing on YouTube or Twitter, and it's going to be two-dimensional. So people aren't going to have that same parallax or 3D that the person playing it does. So they're moving their head around so then they can really get a sense of the space. So they start on this part of the globe, but by the end they've moved over here. They've just rotated around, which really lets you see how the 3D puzzle works. And also they're spinning it around too, which lets you see it in that way, because otherwise it's a little bit harder for the people to understand.
Russell, are you seeing this?
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Okay, so there's a few things to talk about here. So first of all, they're waiting for this puzzle to resolve, so they're just looking through this peephole to see on the other side before the door opens. So the door opens, and there's this really cool moment where this like machine sealing mechanism just opens up. It's very pretty. And then they look over to this zombie and they yank this grenade, and the zombie falls down. So one thing is, in the previous video, I talked about how the person capturing really yanked things and then held it in front of the camera for a little bit so you could see what it is. Now here they didn't do that, but that's because they were following instead the zombie falling down, because that was the more exciting part, to see it falling. And then the other good thing about this clip is that it really shows verticality, but in a downward way. So one thing that is very true in VR is that even when you see a cliff that is not there in real life, you still can't help but get a little bit nervous, because your brain doesn't want to fall into massive pits. So they're showing some of the verticality there. And then when they look up, you see this sort of power thing here, which was featured in the announced trailer, shooting electricity or whatever it is in this direction. Now, this is another moment which I'm not 100% sure if this was just the natural timing of this thing happening, because this seems like a very time-dependent thing. And they just happen to look up at the precise moment that the electricity shoots out. So either they knew exactly the amount of time it would take from, say, the ceiling opening up to the electricity shooting out, and them sort of looking down in the hole here is stalling for time a little bit. Maybe they even had someone off screen just counting with a timer saying, okay, electricity in 3, 2, 1, look up. It could have been that. They could have also done some sort of custom thing where they would like trigger the electricity to happen at the exact right time. But that would have taken some extra work, so maybe less likely. But it's still a really well-paced moment. There's constantly new things happening all the time, and it's really well done.
Look out.
And so this grenade moment here, this is the moment where you get to see that the thing that they pulled out was a grenade. And this is also, again, a lot of these gameplay moments are to differentiate VR from non-VR. And people who have played first-person or third-person video games with grenades know that usually it's like a button that either you lob into the air or you aim at a particular spot and just throw the grenade that way. But here in VR, you can do whatever the heck you want. Treat the grenade more or less like it was in real life. So here, instead of in Arc, they can just move like this and just drop it into the pit. Drop it into the pit. And so here they're showing this sort of gross Zen thing, which they try to use with gravity gloves, but to no avail. And so this is a cool little acting moment here. There's a zombie, they're loading their shotgun, and some reason they're holding the mechanism here and not cocking it until the very last second. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, that's an interesting acting choice. And this is just speculation, but maybe they're trying to make it seem more stealthy, because if they clicked it, maybe the zombie would hear and get triggered. Who knows? I don't know if that's actually a thing, but the way they play it feels like that. So that's a cool little moment. And so this moment here is pretty fun. They're trying to grab this thing with the gravity gloves, but this alien hand thing is not having it. So they have to yank it out as fast as they can. And you can see this little acting moment here. You can see the hand is sort of moving, just, they're going, yeah. So another little acting moment, which is really nice, totally unnecessary, but makes it just that much more immersive to just watch this clip. It feels much more like this is Alyx doing this. This isn't someone at home on their sofa or in their living room just trying to do this.
Gotcha.
And they give it a little toss here. Just this sort of thing, tossing this orb around. If you want to do this in a non-VR game, they would just have to animate that, and it would be the same animation every single time. But here, you can just willy-nilly just toss this thing around and just basically treat it more or less like real life. And so again, they're really playing up this suspenseful moment for the camera. They're testing the lock, which, the player in this would have probably known from these boards and this type of glass and this lock here that obviously it's locked, but they're just checking it so then the audience can understand, yes, this is locked because if this were a movie or something, then people might not necessarily have that same sort of thought, and you need to do that for the benefit of the audience. Otherwise, people saying like, well, why didn't they just try the door? For all they know, it's unlocked. And then here, they really play up how the fear of this head crab, and they're like, oh man, and they're panicking, shooting it. Which, if you look at it, this head crab actually, I know this is playing in slow motion, but it sort of slides up. So I think that they might have cheated a little bit here, because it happens so fast, and maybe part of the performance was there to sell that this head crab just went bleh. But in actuality, maybe they just really quick and dirty animated this head crab just popping up like this. So that's speculation, but from what I'm looking at, it looks like that's what's happening. But, I didn't notice until I played frame by frame, so if it works, it works.
Damn it.
And so this is a nice little moment, again, just showing some like light puzzle solving sort of thing, where it's like, there's this gap up above. I can totally just lop this grenade over there and blow up this door. And then, there's this, it's cool how they sort of squeeze this orb, which it would just, again, be a canned animation in a non-VR game. But here, it's a little bit more tactile. Who knows? Maybe the controller vibrates a little bit when that happens. And as some people have pointed out on YouTube, the door blew backwards instead of forwards, but whatever. Video games.
I'm really starting to think I shouldn't be breathing this stuff.
Agreed. Just keep moving. Maybe breathe less.
And so here, they're just taking their time, letting the audience look at the environment art, which is, super detailed and beautiful. And you can see how like the headset gets closer, and then the little thing slinks away. Just show a little bit of that interaction.
Maybe breathe less.
And so in this section here, they're just walking around, and then you see where you come from, just really showing the space off. And then we come over to this mechanism, which they're just playing around with a gun to make sure that you understand this is some sort of hologram.
Crap. Oh, they're gross.
And so here, at this moment, they grab this capsule thing, and then the barnacle steals it, just show some of that interaction. And then here they show some quick thinking where they use the shotgun and then immediately grab the capsule, whatever it is, before it can fall down, which I'm sure they probably could have yanked it up anyway, even if it did. But some cool coordination there. And get a little close-up of the capsule. And so, this is just, finishing off this mini sort of key moment, basically. Elevator comes up. I saw a lot of comments with people talking about, hearing the Overwatch, nice little nostalgia moment there, which they probably, who knows, maybe that happens at this exact moment in the game, or maybe they added it in post, so then that, just to fill the space a little bit. It could have been either way, but it's a good way to just push those nostalgia buttons. And then the elevator comes up.
Lock, cauterize, stabilize.
Look, they're looking for you now, okay? So just be careful.
I'll be ready.
And then this is just a nice little ending. It feels very much like a midpoint sort of thing. So again, talking about the pacing of the gameplay clips as a whole, you know, this is a middle section, and this is kind of gearing up to whatever's in the next clip after this. Really good timing between the different things happening, like the dialogue and the button pushing. There's very little space in between them. So it's like, you know, door comes down.
Okay, so just be careful.
I'll be ready.
Push. I'll be ready. Bam. There's really, really good timing there. They might have even had to move it around, but really, really well done. Good pacing. Again, it's a one-take shot, but it has really, really good pacing from beginning to end. New ideas all the time, little bit of suspense, some dramatic tension. These are really well done gameplay clips. Okay, so that's my breakdown of the second gameplay clip for Half-Life Alyx. I'm just gonna do one more, and then we'll be done with it. And then the game comes out, you know, as of this recording, like next week, the game will be out, and then I'm just gonna dive back into VR and just play the whole finished thing. But again, I hope you enjoyed this look at the gameplay clip. I hope you learned something. If you did, please leave me a comment below what you learned. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Again, I didn't work on these gameplay clips, but if there's any sort of question you have, I'll just do my best to answer it based off of just my own knowledge of making trailers and that sort of thing. I also want to give a shout out to my top Patreon supporters. By the way, I have a Patreon to help support me doing things like this newsletter and videos like these. You can get early access to videos, and also you can ask questions, my monthly Q&A, and also I have a monthly group call where you get all together and talk about trailers. I can answer your questions there live and just get a little behind the scenes look at what I'm doing in terms of making trailers, making new content like this. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the third and final video for the gameplay clips of Half-Life Alyx.